we are celebrating the premiere date of The Chicken from Outer Space, made December 31st, 1995, right?
The Chicken from Outer Space was made December 1st?
No, December 31st, 1995.
Right. Okay, I trust you. It's out of memory. You might as well ask me about ancient Greece because that's where it is.
When developing The Chicken from Outer Space, what influenced you? Do you have any influence from the hit 90s sci fi show The X Files, by any chance? There's a big UFO frenzy during that time, so I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean about that because I love UFOs and spaceships, but that kind of but there is another genre. I'm more of the post war science fiction spaceships
Okay.
that we see in in cinema. You know, not yeah, that's what I like.
Hmm.
Forbidden Planet and all those other great movies
Okay.
where spaceships come around and there's always somebody inside them. Once in a while, we get to see when they come out.
Yeah. So do you believe in unexplained phenomena?
Why not if it's unexplained?
All right. There's this painting by Grant Wood, American Gothic.
Yeah, yeah.
Did anything with the character design for that? Like for
No,
Eustace and
I'm aware of the painting. It also fits in this period, but I wasn't consciously borrowing from Wood and his oeuvre.
well, yeah, it doesn't really look like it per se, but it just like the house in the back and just the two farmers. It kind of just I don't know. I thought it would be a good question, so yeah.
No, you're very right. You're absolutely right. Um, I was mostly influenced by Depression era photographs, and I have to tell you that I think what's her name, Dorothea Lange, comes up a lot. I was looking at her photos. I mean, stunning Great Depression stuff, and there are others as well. And I was borrowing from that. Um, So that would be a more accurate loci.
Okay. And why pink for the dog? Just out of curiosity.
I was I was I was well curious about the color and its commodification in 20th century marketplace. And it's like a lot of what I'm coming to realize a bit of anarchy.
Cool.
I wanted something that would symbolically represent what a culture, Western culture, would see as non masculine, non courageous.
Cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Nice. I had no idea.
And it would worked against me, my friend. Worked against me. Um, the thing the thing is that I didn't calculate was how influential the color is when attracting boys in terms of merchandising. There's a reason why dogs often are other colors other than pink.
All right. So the Chicken from Outer Space featured on the newly established broadcasting station Cartoon Network on February 18th, 1996. So it's the
Yay!
26th anniversary. Too bad we missed it last year for the 25th, but you know, it's all
Oh,
right.
this is the 26th now? I'm not big into anniversaries. Every day is an anniversary. I mean, what are we saying? I mean, when I get up in the morning, I look in the mirror and I say, "Hey, nice to see you." And then I check that everything works,
I agree. I agree. It's February 18th, and it is the anniversary of when the pilot of Courage the Cowardly Dog premiered on Cartoon Network. It's a
Yay! It
great
wasn't
day.
a pilot, you know that.
Yeah, I wanted
I,
to ask you about that if you could expand on that, just because I know that it was a little bit different. So,
it was funded as a pilot, of course, with its introduction into that program that the impresario Fred Seibert was
mm,
champion. It was his program. What a cartoon! He's genius with
yeah,
this thing. And the Chicken from Outer Space, as everyone would know from prior interviews, was a short film. It was my next independent film after The Dirty Birdie. And The Dirty Birdie it broke me. I was still paying off debts, and I couldn't pocket fund the Chicken from Outer Space. So when it was over at Jumbo Pictures in New York, um, and it was going around that Hanna-Barbera was looking for shorts. I believe Jim Jenkins, the creator of Doug, he was the first to mention it to me. I guess he presumed that I would be submitting something, but I hadn't heard of it. And I don't know how I got, oi, oi, oi. I don't know how I don't know how I got into this. Who, who put me in touch with um, Fred, but he came to the studio. We'll just ignore this. It's only the White House, and they wanted a statement on the UFOs, and I don't have one because I'm doing an interview with a cartoon scientist.
all right.
So Fred came up, and I showed him the Dirty Birdie, and he was like immediately no, because for obvious reasons, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was happy about that actually, because I didn't really want to sell the Dirty Birdie. It's not that I'm doing a hell of a lot with him, and what am I going to do with him when I'm dead? But I just didn't want to sell it. It was too underground, as Carl Cohen uh, honored it. Underground classic. Like Marvin Newland's Godzilla, Bambi meets Godzilla, and Danny Antonucci's Lupo the Butcher. I'm so proud of that distinction. Anyway, so I had the board of the Chicken from Outer Space, and so I showed him that, and he put me in touch with a development executive at H&B, Ellen Cockrell. Lovely, lovely. Had a great time, and we went into production in New York City. Yeah, it was. I was very fortunate. So many good things were happening to me. It was terrible that I would have such a bad attitude.
From the outside, like a person like myself who just sees like these bumpers of all the cartoon characters together, you would assume that all of the creators work together in the same studio. So that's why it was like, wow, I had no idea that you were an independent uh, filmmaker and you had your own studio and you were in a completely different city. So it's an eye opener, really. So.
I'm not the only one.
Mm.
I'm certain. We simply haven't done the investigation to discover the others. Up Periscope. However, there's nothing wrong with it. When I would go to visit, and I would go through Hanna Barbera and meet everybody, and everyone was so young. We were all so young, and there was one office where Gendy and all the big Turks today were all sitting, making their movies, and it was just lovely. I still see it in my mind, that room. They had great offices. All the animators, they were super doped out. I mean, wonderful spaces, environments, really. And any animator would have loved to join that collegiate style togetherness. But like I said, I was a New Yorker and I wasn't moving to California.
Did you feel like an outsider at all, or was it just you didn't really care?
I don't know what an outsider is. I've never really felt that I belonged in any group, and any group that would have me is definitely not a group worth joining, right?
Mm, exactly.
That's Groucho Marx, I think. Oh no, was that Woody Allen? I can't even remember. I'm ripping them off, but it's still philosophy.
So on March 25th, 1996, The Chicken from Outer Space was nominated for Best Short Film at the 68th Academy Awards. What was your life like at this time, and what was going through your head? You said you were the complete opposite of what I would assume, so.
At this time, well, I had forgotten that I submitted it, and I was too busy stressing out over the short and its future because I wanted a series. And, the idea that it would get shortlisted, I didn't even know that it got shortlisted. I did have a friend, Will Ryan. He called me, the late Will Ryan. He phoned me, so sweet, and said that in one of the preliminary votings that the film got a very good reaction. And I just thought it was a nice compliment because I know Will, and when I go out to LA and visit with Jerry Beck, and Jerry and Will were good friends. It was all part of this little community. So he just was a polite guy. So I never thought about it again. I was too focused on trying to get a series with courage. So I wasn't, I was surprised. I was at my sound designer's home, Michael Geisler, when I learned of it. And interesting anecdote, um, I was driving to Hanna-Barbera that very morning, and it's a very icy. I had a very icy feeling about it. It was almost as though somehow I was condemned, but I still had to repress all sorts of excitement, enthusiasm, because, well, we can't we can't let things get a hold of us. So I'm driving along, and I come upon a dog that got hit by a car in the middle of the road,
Oh my god.
and I pulled over and I collected the dog, and I just went house to house. I know, what an image. Knocking on the door and asking if anybody recognized the dog, if it was their dog. And then after some time of this, no success, a neighbor volunteered to call the, an agency that collects these poor animals. And so they came, gave him the dog, everyone left, and then I went in my car and I went to the studio. And I was, it's hard to ignore the fact that one dog is about to live and another dog just died.
That is hard to imagine. I'm sure that that was an awful day.
Yeah, you can't look at these contrasts, these paradoxes. Well, look, also think about this, cartoon scientist. I could have just drove on by. Everyone else was just another roadkill. But that's courage also. Courage easily could have just closed his eyes to any of the phenomenon that came a knocking, right? And then just let events happen as they happen, right?
Hmm.
But that's not courage. Courage is action. He's the one that stands up. It's nothing to do with him, but he's got a dog sense about things, and and that is compassion.
Wow, that is beautiful.
Cartoon scientist. It's what we do.
Art, you mean?
I have a, a taste for giving back. And I was just, yeah, I was funding other artists, painters, people with dreams. That's the thing. I'm soft on that. If someone comes to me and they share a dream of theirs, I just feel compelled to want to help them forward with it.
Of
And
course.
I'll just say, yeah, let's do it. And I'm serious about it, right? And I'm very serious about it. I remember when I was a puppy, how difficult it was to find someone that would give me that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I finally did get it. And it came in the form of Janet Scagnelli, who ran Chelsea Animation, and the late John Gogg, who hired me as an assistant. And when he died, I took over the directing reins on this commercial, South African commercial called Ellis Brown Coffee Creamer. And that that was the injection right into the blood, right into my veins of how to produce animation, the production. The guy who brought the job in, the director, the vision behind it died, and the job had to be delivered. And I was his assistant. So when I stood up, I said, okay, I do it. And we did it, Janet and I and her whole team. And I learned a lot of production skills.
Mr. Dilworth, what
Oh,
what is silly pop? Is it like a type of cola? Is it a root beer? What is it?
oh, it's a place. It's a safe drink for anyone who wants to get off on being silly.
All right. Um, when Courage tells the chicken to leave Earth, he has a suitcase with a location on it. In the next frame, the location changes. Can you explain the correlation between Mars and Albany, please?
If you haven't been to Albany, you don't know what Mars is.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. I haven't
And
been to Albany.
also, it was a standard. It was an S&P thing, standards and practices. They didn't want me. Originally, I had Albany because for me that was the place you go where, oh, forgive me, nothing. It's New York State's capital, and this and that. My family had several prop. They had homes up there for a short time. My kids' sisters, they went to school there, and then they just kind of settled, and they made a life. And my brother and mother eventually found their way up there. So suddenly I've got this Albany in my life, and of course I go up there. QE2, a great rock club, was there, and I don't know how to explain it without being derogatory because I love every place. I don't want any place to feel slighted, but Mars was pretty. That's it.
Like,
But so standards and practices asked me to remove the Albany
oh,
and put something else there, and I did. I changed one bag to Mars and I kept the other one Albany, and it's on the air. I mean,
that's funny. So they
yeah,
totally
yeah.
overlooked it, did they? Or do
Oh,
you
I
even
don't
think?
know. I don't know. But this is it. This is the trouble I cause people. I mean, why?
Because it's
Really, it's
funny.
a thing for my psychiatrist. I got to get one first.
So, I like the idea of mutagenic eggs. What made you think of like spots on an egg that would make it kind of like out of this earth? Is there a
What
particular
did
reason?
every child get when they were a kiddie?
Um,
That's right, chicken
Game Boy,
pox. Chicken
chicken pox.
pox. The eggs got chicken pox.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense now. Uh, okay, what is POW? Is that an energy drink?
No,
That
Pow is Batman and Robin, the TV show where they had all those wonderful impact cards, brilliant graphics.
mm.
That just comes from there. I'm borrowing from them.
Oh, I don't know why. I just assumed it was an energy drink just because POW gives you energy, you know.
It's a generational thing. You got to remember, it is back in the mid '90s.
Mm.
I'm sure that they have energy drinks, but I don't drink them.
Okay. Uh, So you know how there's a bunch of frames in the house with a bunch of people,
Yeah.
like real photos. Can you can you explain if it's like staff members or family or who are these people?
This is a habit of mine that I insert into a majority of my independent films. Portraits of family members, co-workers, and even executives, and special people who directly influence that picture or that I want to honor in some way.
Hmm, that's
And you'll
nice.
see that if you want to track through all my films.
Yeah, I believe that you have Ned in the actual Courage series, right? And
Ned Ned. You could say Ned is an actor or a character that I perform. So yeah, Ned appears on the frame in the farmhouse living room. It's
mm,
true, and he also appears as Dilly in Dr. Vindaloo's office. The thing is that it's an icon known for one thing, but I am now creating multi uses for it.
mm,
And it ultimately is a portrait of me.
mm. And who's Noodle? Your alter ego?
Oh, Noodles. Noodles is my little cat. I mean, that's Suavidad initially. I had a cat and he didn't make it,
Mm.
but he believed he was going to outlive me. That's how dumb cats are.
Oh, I love my cat.
And I'm sorry, pardon me. You may have the only smart cat. And Noodles, I can't recall where the name developed from.
Mm,
But Suavidad appears in also when Lily Laney first moved in. And there's dustings, residue of this relationship in Courage, in the idea of cats in Fergarina in the Dirty Birdie. That's a I believe that just something that I like. I have a cauldron in my head of imagination, and I could take uh, let's say my own pet cat and find so many different ingredients that I could use in other things.
mm. So I'm on to my last question that I have. And
Wonderful.
can you tell me about the period between 1995 and 1999 and what took so long for Cartoon Network to turn your idea into a series?
Well, I'm not a historian, even though I lived through it. But if you ask other points of view, for me, it was this. I did not want to shutter, stretch, and move into Hanna-Barbera.
Mm,
I did not want to lose the production and have the production done in Hanna-Barbera and I stay in New York City and quasi direct from a distance. So these things I didn't want to do. There was also a lot of noise about Turner and creating a cartoon studio of their own. And I gambled and simply waited.
mm,
And eventually, Turner did create Cartoon Network, and Hanna-Barbera folded. Now, all of that Hanna-Barbera crew simply moved over to Cartoon Network, but not everybody, obviously.
mm,
Hanna-Barbera exists. It is it's an ephemeral thing as a product. It's a product. It hasn't gone away. It's just no physical studio where they're producing product.
okay.
That's what disappeared. Are we clear?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, what was I doing? Um, well, one of the best things was during that period, I was doing preschool shows. I produced Ace and Avery, was a preschool show with Cartoon Network and Sesame Street, and then I also did these little short series, 1 minute shorts for Arlene Sherman at Sesame Street, and she was the producer there. And I also produced short film Noodles and Net right after the Chicken from Outer Space, which was, and I was really proud of that because Michael Sporn wrote me a letter telling me how amazed he was that I was able to go from something like Courage to Noodles and Ned. The styles are so dramatically different, and the themes and the rhythm.
Hmm.
But that's the things I was doing. I can't remember what else I was doing. Of course, I'm traveling all over the world, attending film festivals.
Yeah, I checked, and you had about like eight other winnings. So besides the Oscar for the Chicken from Outer
Well, it
Space.
wasn't just that. Remember that I had other films, Lily Laney, Limited Bird to a lesser extent, and even less Pierre. But the Chicken from Outer Space and the Dirty Birdie were touring the festivals simultaneously.
Hmm.
It was a great sensation because Dirty Birdie was a tremendous success in terms of public appreciation. Just the ability to create minutes upon minutes of laughter. If you've ever been in a sequestered room and an audience, and the laughter is. There have been times when I just simply walked out of a theater, and stood and waited outside, and just hear the laughter coming through the closed doors. Filmmakers experience these wonderful times, and this is why we do it. I have to say, I mean, in part, of course, but it's to move people, to get a reaction out of them, and to feel it, to share it. Again, it's come back to compassion. You are me, me is you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to tell me about Chicken from Outer Space, or did we cover
Well, the
everything?
chicken from outer space. Well, I mean, you didn't touch on it, but I'm going to volunteer.
Okay.
The production of the chicken from outer space. It was. Wait. I mean, it was. Was it shot on film? No, it was the last film. It it was the first film that I didn't shoot on 35 millimeter. That I didn't use cell paints and cells. The Dirty Birdie was my last traditional cell painted, hand painted, photographed on 35 millimeter film. And during this time, it's just beginning to evolve into the digital production process. I mean, everything I did was animated by hand. And what happened is that we sent it out of studio to have it scanned and painted digitally. Margaret Fry, she simply scanned my backgrounds and painted them digitally in Photoshop. And for us at that time, it was a big, big deal. We were kind of excited that here we're on the vanguard. We're doing this thing, and it was weird. I mean, to see these pixels and all the hardware you needed. But one of the things that I remember is the apprehension of sending on, like one drawing, like all the drawings had to leave, and there was always the risk that something would get lost. So one thing I learned working with Janet Scagnelli was how they Xeroxed all the drawings, everything, pegged them in case the drawings disappeared. Things happen. So I remember doing um, the major backgrounds. I remember just making duplicates of them. And I remember one had a windmill in it, Another one didn't have the windmill because Sean Terabyte said he could make the windmill spin around, so that one disappeared. So I made another one. The thing is that when I look back at that time, how essential it was not to retain the pencil on the paper. So if we kept a copy and they sent out a copy, it had to be the same graphite. It had to be the same. It had to be identical in case one got lost. And there's several backgrounds like that. I don't know. Maybe there's some lucky collectors who have them. I don't know, or maybe they're where they are. But that's an interesting detail that I've just, I think back on. But nowadays, and we didn't do Xeroxes because, the thing about Xerox is if you've ever done it, Xerox your pencil line, the Xerox is not your line. And then you scan that, and that's another contamination. You're not going to get the same aesthetics. And if you have, like fine cars, you're tuned a certain way. Uh, you got to have copies of you got to have duplicates to save yourself. Well, that's just an interesting tangent on production.
I love it.
Oh,
I
you do, cartoon scientist.
yes, I do. I don't know much about Xeroxing, but I've heard that the early '90s, throughout the '90s, which that's what they did. But I
Oh
had
no,
no
that
idea
they
that
did
digital.
Xeroxing. I'm sorry, cartoon scientist. There was another process where they take your animation drawings and they Xerox them on cells.
Yeah.
That was a period also. I was doing commercials like that also. And that's not what I'm talking about.
What are you
I
talking
didn't
about?
use Xeroxes. I didn't.
Okay.
No, no. On commercials, we use Xeroxes. A short commercial, like 30 seconds, but a 6 minute film. First of all, we didn't even have that equipment. I mean, it was nothing to redraw. We draw. That's what we have. We that's what we do.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was interesting to avoid the inking stage and the expense. Well, it would just change because you need somebody who would process the Xeroxing. But I love painting. I learned all of that, how to ink, how to paint on the back of cells, wearing the white gloves, everything clean. Oh, it's just wow.
Yeah. You know what? It's shocking that I really had no idea that digital came so early. I really thought it came in the 2000s, but that's
Well,
something
when
I
I
did not
was
know.
going to school at SVA, I I I got an internship at Judson Rosebush's a phenomenally successful CGI commercial house. I even forget the oh, too bad I forget the name of it. And I believe that technology was going to, you know, it was going to be the de facto way filmmakers made films. And look at today. But I realized also it wasn't for me. I love drawing. I love biting on pencils and crumpling up paper and all of that jazz. So I dropped out.
Hmm. Yeah, I know there's a lot of CGI around that time, but I just meant like 2D. I didn't know that they were doing digital. I know they did digital painting in uh, early 2000s, right?
Well, Disney was up to all sorts of new technology that trickles downward, So they were doing stuff ahead of everyone else at the
Mm,
time. You're talking about the early 90s.
mm.
But I'm not an animation historian, That's the thing. I wish I could speak more intelligently about it.
Well, I think what you said today is very knowledgeable, so I appreciate your time, and I uh, yeah, I don't really know what else to say. I think I covered pretty well everything besides production.
Well, cartoon scientist, it is a pleasure for me to appear on your program, and I do hope that I was able to uh, entertain as well as inspire and fulfill uh, the absence of knowledge in certain areas.
You definitely did, so I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. cartoon
GQ.
scientist.